Welcome to the show. Welcome to Your Thought Life podcast. I am your host, Michael Anderson. Today we're talking about creating team optimism without ignoring reality. There's just been an outpouring of requests, if you will, for content like this that address and deal with the team dynamic. Many of our younger professionals are just entering into the managerial space, and they need us to assist them with some of the team building mechanisms. We're going to deal with one aspect of that today. We're going to look at some of the critical yet often misunderstood leadership skills. We as leaders have to create optimism, but at the same time, that cannot be done in the absence of reality. There are real situations, real circumstances on the ground that are taking place. They are not to be looked over, dismissed, or categorized in such a way that they come off as not being real and authentic situations. As leaders, our responsibility is to provide balance, a delicate balance in many cases, between inspiring hope in our team and dealing with some really tough truths. For us to be able to do this, we have to really think through what this balancing act looks like and the dynamics that make it up. We need to have an understanding of how do we cultivate resilience, first in us, because we got to lead by example. Then how do we exude that into the team? There's often time where we need to work collaboratively inside of the team construct and cross-functionally. This requires us to be in such a mindset that we can do collaboration and innovation in the same vein. Just so we level set, it is our responsibility as leaders to create an environment where teams can thrive in pressure and out of pressure. Let's begin today by talking about the importance of team optimism. Let's just sort of get a framework around this. Optimism is not about being cheerful and ignoring challenge. We said that in our opening. We rephrased it just a little bit differently. Optimism is fostered by a positive outlook that fuels problem solving coupled with resilience. Problem solving involves finding out and determining what is the root cause, what is necessary to fix it. Resilience is our ability to stay calm, cool, and collected, tactically focused in the face of the problem. These two, as you can see, run hand in hand. The research from the American Psychological Association shows that optimistic teams are more productive, better at managing stress, and more likely to achieve their goals. Why? Why is this? It's because they understand that being in the moment is remaining calm, cool, and collected. That gives them the greatest opportunity to deny higher levels of cortisol, which cloud problem solving and don't permit resilience to be a part of the solution. As leaders, we set the tone. If we're radiating constructive optimism and we're not denying that we've got real world situation on the ground that requires the attention of not just us, but us in our team, then the team is much more likely to adopt the same mindset. Very early on, as an armed service member, when I first started leading a squad of men and women, I found this principle out really, really fast. If I was frazzled, they were frazzled. If I appeared to have everything figured out, or at least in a position / mindset where we could figure it out, everybody was on board. None of those dynamics change in the workplace. They're exactly the same, just playing out like theater in a different aspect of our lives. When we show up with the right mindset and the right attitude, it has a ripple effect that strengthens the entire team and/or organization. For a while now, I've been operating in the capacity of CTO, 230 people in the operation of this ed tech department. And I can tell you that one person and this one person's optimism can change the dynamics that create the culture for that team or for that organization. You should step away knowing that your contribution as a single individual is incredibly important. Let's switch tracks for just a moment. Why does reality matter? Is the other question that we need to get a beautiful, nice white picket fence around. Because ignoring reality in the name of optimism is the perfect recipe to erode or destroy trust. Teams respect leaders who acknowledge challenges and validate their struggles. Nobody wants this like fluffy woo-woo situation when they're at work. Well, some do. For the vast majority, they don't. I happened to come across a body of work from Stanford University that shows that teams perform best when leaders maintain transparency while focusing on the solution. Like, if you just try to sweep it under the rug and deny that the situation is there and sort of tap dance all around it without acknowledging its very presence, that is the wrong way to deal with the team dynamic. You want to turn that around and show the team that you truly understand the situation that they're faced with. I've also gone through the paces to understand how they are feeling about the situation. Never deny the feeling either. Then you having a higher degree of transparency and vulnerability, that allows you to connect with them where they are. If there's a need to bring them up, you have now gotten to where they are. They have seen this, and now they're in a place to allow you to bring them up. That's how it works. Pretending that everything is fine when it's clearly not just breeds resentment, and you don't need that. You don't need anything entering into your leadership triangle that's going to disengage the team. You need just the opposite. And that's why moving forward in transparency and honesty is the simple way to do this, and certainly will yield you the greatest amount of fruit. So we put a foundation around the importance of the team optimism. We talked a little bit about the reality, how that matters to the individual contributors. Now let's get to the good part where we talk through what are the steps that we can do to foster optimism without denying the reality. The first thing that comes to mind is you have to acknowledge these challenges. They're going to show up differently. They're going to show up in a variety of different formats. They're going to take place at the most inopportune time. Anytime you have a set agenda and things don't go according to the agenda, Murphy, if you will, gets involved and tries to throw you and your team off track. You just gotta be real open about this and acknowledge Murphy's existence, because he's gonna do what he's gonna do, and you just gotta know that and let the team go through whatever process the team goes through, depending on the maturity level. That might play out in various different ways, but let them go through what they need to go through. Then start the conversation by recognizing the hurdle, by addressing the fear, by addressing the frustration. Get all of that out of the way quickly so that you can then turn your attention to what really matters. I'll tell you this, across the breadth of my leadership tenure, which is now minus the 5 years in the Army, but just the civilian side, 23 years, this strategy has teeth and will be a tremendous asset to you if you can swallow your pride, concede that you need this team, and do what this requires you to do, literally ego-free. This will serve you like you would not believe. Number 2 is focusing on the solution, not the problem. I have seen teams, not my teams, but other teams get so concentrated on the problem and trying to understand why it happened that they take so much time doing that and spend so much energy literally spinning wheels where they could have been using that good energy to deal with the issue. After you have addressed challenges, it's important that you steer the discussion toward action, toward actionable resolutions, toward the steps that begin the process of repairing, fixing, tweaking the situation, that it goes from the state that's unwanted to the state that is needed. This shift literally activates the brain's problem-solving regions and fosters, if you will, in a team dynamic, a think tank of sort, where everybody is now pitching in and thinking through the alternatives, the potential solution paths, picking those apart to construct the best set of circumstances. Next, when we have done this process and we're starting to see some momentum and we get a couple of quick wins, perhaps from low-hanging fruit or perhaps from some good thorough analysis, because we're in this so-called think tank situation where we're on one accord and everybody is rallied around how do we solve this problem? Well, celebrate the wins. Celebrate each one and make it a big deal, especially if it's in a team dynamic. When I report out on a quarterly basis, whether it's with members of the executive team or to the board, I have always made it a place to make mention of my team, because I have come to understand that my level of achievement/accomplishment is literally on the backs of those individuals who I am referring to or talking about in a particular update. When you take the time publicly to share wins with your team and to have other people in other departments hear you talk about your team and that get back to them through the SME channels, that creates a tremendous amount of capital for you, emotional capital for you with your team. And you will find that they will be much more engaged, much more likely to show up in a way that is complementary to problem solving than otherwise if you have done this and they have experienced this. Finally, we as leaders have to assess our teams. We have to really understand what is the team's strength, what is the team's weakness, and we need to then translate that to individual contributors and subject matter experts in a way that's unoffensive, but in a way that also helps them understand you're firing on all cylinders here. But these couple of areas here, for you to be your best, we are going to have to, not they, we are going to have to put together a plan to bring you up a little higher. And that's going to require you instilling a growth mindset in them. If you have team members who are in the fixed mindset camp and are, somewhat bashful and or resistant to change, then you've got to work with them extra, because we need everybody on the team to be on the same sheet of music. We used to say that in the armed services, or on the same page. From time to time, you'll need to remind the team and the team members that challenges are also an opportunity for growth. The growth mindset is incredibly important for us to be able to show up differently at the end of the year than we did at the beginning of the year. There should be some growth that has taken place over that duration. And if we as leaders are not promoting that change and holding ourselves accountable such that individuals A through E, if they look the exact same at the end of the year or at the end of a rating period that they did at the beginning, we have let them down. We have let them down tremendously. And that is not the idea that growth mindset is founded on. We as leaders have to promote this. Early on, just as a sort of a bonus, if you will, we talked about resilience, the ability to bounce back in the face of adversity. You're going to have to cultivate this in your teams. You're going to do this by celebrating those wins. Do not forget to celebrate your wins. It's a tremendous asset. Leading with optimism, family, while being rooted in reality, requires a high degree of emotional intelligence, aka EQ. You have got to be able to keep your cool so that you can lead through the circumstances. You've got to understand the emotional state of the team. You've got to be able to sense those subtle shifts. You've got to be able to read body language. You've got to be able to look at facial expressions, because the vast majority of communication is not verbal bodied. That said, when you are working with your teams, when you're doing individual counseling, you've got to begin to understand what makes these people tick, what makes the team tick, and note those things. When you are in those tough conversations, don't avoid the opportunity to share a shortcoming as something that that person or the team can grow by. Unilaterally, on every team that I've ever been responsible for, we always, after a significant event or an incident of any type, we do a post-mortem. What happened? How did we behave? How did we perform? How did the folks that we depend on to assist us aid? What can we do better? What can they do better? We document that, everybody understands it, and then if a situation similar occurs again, we all know how to conduct ourselves. These are some incredible tactics that you can put into your toolkit to help cultivate a team dynamic in such a way that when you guys are faced with some sort of challenge, you can keep the team optimistic while not ignoring the reality of the situation. I trust that this was helpful for you. Thank you so much for your time and commitment to listen to this episode. Feel free to connect with us on Linktree. The link is available there in the show notes. If you received gain from this, knowledge from this, go ahead and take the next step and consider leaving us a rating and a review. You should know that you are enough. You can do it. And you are uniquely equipped to realize your goals. Until next time, take care and be safe.